Jungkook jealous? Taehyung and Jimin's ocean moment sparks alarm among ARMY. The photograph should have been nothing more than a serene postcard, a simple scene of two friends standing shoulder to shoulder at sunset, the ocean waves gently tracing the sand beneath their feet. Yet what unfolded instead was a storm of speculation so fierce that it has left millions of ARMYs divided, worried, and even fearful. Why was Jungkook absent from that moment? And more disturbingly, could his absence signal something deeper, a hidden tension that fans have long suspected but never confirmed? The image of Taehyung and Jimin by the sea quickly spread across online platforms. At first glance, it looked peaceful, even healing. Jimin's faint smile, the kind that suggests comfort rather than performance, stood in quiet contrast with Taehyung's calm, contemplative gaze. To many, the scene radiated warmth, a moment of reconnection between two friends who have weathered years of relentless schedules, military service, and constant media attention. This is their way of telling us that they still have each other's backs. One fan wrote, framing the image as a reminder of unshakable friendship. But to another portion of the fandom, the picture was not reassuring at all. Instead, it raised uncomfortable questions. Where was Jungkook, the youngest member whose bond with Jimin has for years been considered unbreakable? Why did the camera capture only two figures in that golden light while the third was nowhere in sight? Within hours, speculation escalated into sharp debates across forums, fan communities, and international headlines. Some fans argued that this was not about a beach or a sunset at all. It was about symbolism. The symbolism of who stood together and who did not. For them, the omission of Jungkook from the frame could not be dismissed as coincidence. Theories surged. Had Jimin emotionally shifted closer to Taehyung? Had Jungkook been deliberately left out? Was this a subtle reflection of changing dynamics within BTS itself? The questions hung in the air, unanswered, but growing louder with every repost of the photograph. Observers quickly connected the moment to past incidents. Longtime followers recalled interactions where Jungkook and Taehyung appeared distant, even strained. Paparazzi shots capturing Jungkook's subdued expressions resurfaced, fueling interpretations that his absence from the beach was more than just a scheduling matter. For many, this was not the portrait of harmony. It was the silhouette of division. The emotional intensity only deepened when theories evolved into narratives. Some ARMYs began to describe the moment as the start of a pattern, claiming that Jimin's closeness to Taehyung might be signaling a slow but deliberate distancing from Jungkook. Others speculated whether such imagery could even be part of a larger unspoken story, perhaps one connected to BTS's rumored reunion, or even a subtle emotional confession that words could not capture for fans who have long seen Jungkook and Jimin as inseparable. Two halves of a bond forged through hardship, laughter, and years of shared growth. The photo felt like a quiet betrayal. There should have been three. One fan posted, echoing the sentiment of thousands. The missing figure, Jungkook, seemed to loom larger than the sun itself. His absence was not empty, it was haunting. The debate became so fierce that it divided ARMY into factions rarely seen before. Optimists clung to the image as a moment of healing between Jimin and Taehyung, choosing to interpret it as brotherhood rediscovered. Realists, however, insisted that Jungkook's absence overshadowed any joy. And pessimists read the moment as a warning sign that BTS's strongest emotional ties may be fraying. The silence from all three only amplified the storm. Neither Jimin, Taehyung, nor Jungkook commented on the photo. In that silence, ARMY filled the void with theories that spiraled beyond control. Every past interaction was re-examined, every candid moment reinterpreted, and every smile, or lack thereof, was treated as evidence of an unfolding story. The absence of clarification became its own statement, one that fans could not ignore. Soon, the controversy leapt beyond fan circles and into international media. Korean tabloids were the first to frame the sunset as a turning point, describing Jungkook's missing presence as a symbol of shifted dynamics. Western outlets quickly followed, with Rolling Stone calling the image a poetic snapshot of a group at a crossroads, while Billboard bluntly asked, "Is BTS still walking the same path?" Even the New York Times published a cultural analysis on how fandoms often act like detectives, dissecting every gesture to uncover hidden truths. The result was staggering. A single sunset became a metaphor for uncertainty within one of the world's most influential groups. For some, the scene signified renewal. For others, it screamed of division. The debate was no longer about a beach photo, but about the future of BTS itself. Could one absence, one missed moment, reveal cracks that had been building for years? Jungkook himself became the center of emotional speculation. Fans pointed to his recent appearances, where his once bright energy appeared dimmed, his smiles rarer, his expressions heavier. For many, the beach photograph confirmed a suspicion. Jungkook may be carrying a weight invisible to the public, but reflected in subtle ways. Was he being left behind emotionally? Was he watching bonds shift around him without his place secured? And yet, amid the uproar, another faction of ARMY fought back against the narrative of division. They insisted that fans were overanalyzing, turning an innocent moment into a battlefield. Why must everything be seen as rivalry? One fan argued, "This is healing. This is friendship reclaimed. Nothing more." For them, the picture was not a symbol of jealousy, but of love. Two friends embracing the quiet of the ocean after years apart. But the divide within ARMY itself could not be ignored. The fandom, once united by its faith in BTS's bond, now seemed fractured by its own interpretations. For some, the photo was proof of loyalty. For others, proof of betrayal. In that divide lies the true cost of global fame. Every silence becomes a statement, every gesture a headline, and every absence a source of speculation. What remains certain is that the photo has achieved what few images ever could. It has frozen a single moment in time and magnified it until it became larger than itself. It is no longer just Taehyung and Jimin at the ocean. It is the reflection of longing, of doubt, of unspoken words, and of millions of fans projecting their own fears and hopes onto the scene. The most pressing question lingers. Is Jungkook truly jealous? Or is this entire storm nothing more than the consequence of a fandom so devoted, so vigilant, that even silence is treated as confession? No answer has yet been given, but the tension remains palpable. One sunset, two silhouettes, one absence. A single image that has divided millions. Whether it is a sign of healing or fracture, no one can say with certainty. What is undeniable, however, is that this moment has left ARMY restless, questioning, and emotionally on edge. And until Jungkook, Jimin, or Taehyung address it, the waves of speculation will not calm. The ocean photo is no longer just an image. It is a mirror, one that reflects not only BTS's bonds, but also the fragility of the fandom's faith in them. And in that mirror, Jungkook's missing presence lingers like a shadow, impossible to ignore, a silence louder than words. The storm surrounding the photograph has shown no signs of fading. Instead, it grows heavier with every repost, every headline, every debate that stretches across continents. What should have been an intimate snapshot of serenity has become a battlefield of interpretations, a global conversation that now refuses to quiet down. ARMY is restless, torn between hope and suspicion, between reassurance and fear. The central figure of absence, Jungkook, remains shrouded in silence, yet his silence feels louder than the crashing waves captured in that golden hour scene. In online forums, the discourse has escalated into layers of meaning, each theory more detailed than the last. Some insist that Jimin's closeness to Taehyung is not betrayal, but renewal of an old bond long overshadowed by distance and individual pursuits. Others argue that it is not about Jimin and Taehyung at all, but rather about Jungkook's isolation, whether chosen or imposed, whether symbolic or circumstantial. The uncertainty is what fuels the fire, leaving space for fans to project their own interpretations. Critics warn that this moment exposes the greatest vulnerability of BTS: the pressure of constant observation. Every action, every smile, every absence becomes a code to be cracked. For years, BTS's greatest strength was its unity, a bond that fans believed unshakable. Now, with a single missing presence in a single frame, that belief is tested. The idea of jealousy is not confirmed, yet it lingers like a shadow, impossible to dismiss. The weight of expectation has always followed BTS, but never has it felt as heavy as it does now. The sunset photo is no longer confined to sand and sea. It is a question mark suspended in the global consciousness, a mystery that millions are desperate to solve. Whether it becomes a fleeting controversy or the first page of a deeper story depends not on the waves that evening, but on what follows next, on whether Jungkook steps back into the frame, or whether his absence becomes the symbol that defines an era. A sunset, a missing presence, and the weight of speculation. ARMY's emotional divide faces a larger question. The photograph of Taehyung and Jimin at the ocean has already provoked a storm of speculation, suspicion, and emotional turbulence. Yet, as this narrative spreads across platforms and news outlets, another question begins to emerge. One more fundamental than whether Jungkook was absent by chance or by choice. The question is this: can we, as observers, truly believe that such moments are reflections of reality? Or are we witnessing the deliberate construction of a spectacle, carefully shaped to ignite public attention and fuel global headlines? The truth is that the photograph did not circulate in silence. It moved through TikTok edits, YouTube analysis videos, Twitter threads, and blog posts that reached millions. Each platform added its own narrative, amplifying details, reinterpreting gestures, and layering emotional weight onto the scene. But here lies the challenge. How much of what we consume is factual, and how much is manufactured? Are fans engaging with reality, or with an echo chamber of interpretations, built upon the shifting sands of fandom discourse? Every fan who stares at that sunset image must confront a difficult question. Do they see the photograph itself, or do they see what they have been told to see? Is Jungkook's absence a fact with meaning, or has meaning been imposed upon an absence that might otherwise be trivial? And more provocatively, is the entire conversation itself evidence of how easily perception can be manipulated in the age of digital virality? The dramatic headlines that followed, the talk of jealousy, division, and unspoken fractures did not emerge from the photograph alone. They were born out of interpretations repeated so often that they began to feel like truth. Yet must repetition equal authenticity? Should the collective voice of millions be treated as evidence? Or must skepticism remind us that even millions can be misled when desire for drama outweighs patience for fact? If we take a step back, the situation raises an unsettling possibility that the sunset moment may not be a revelation of internal dynamics, but rather a projection of our own need for stories. Do fans impose jealousy upon Jungkook because they fear change? Do they read reconciliation into Jimin and Taehyung because they crave harmony? Or is the media complicit in weaving tension into tranquility because conflict sells faster than calm? The digital ecosystem thrives on provocation. TikTok edits slow the video to emphasize glances that may have lasted a second. YouTube commentators freeze frames to highlight expressions that may mean nothing. Twitter amplifies the loudest voices while ignoring quieter ones that plead for reason. In such a storm, who can say what is genuine? Is it not possible that the supposed rift is nothing more than a product of media magnification? Consider this. If Jungkook had been present in the photo, standing beside Jimin and Taehyung, would the story have existed at all? Or would it have been dismissed as three friends enjoying the ocean at dusk? Does this not suggest that the power of the story lies not in what happened, but in what did not happen? If so, what does that reveal about the fragility of perception? We must also reflect on the dangerous ease with which hoaxes are born in the digital age. When a photograph circulates without explanation, audiences rush to fill the silence with narrative. In that silence, imagination becomes fact, and speculation becomes truth. But must we allow silence to dictate reality? Must we accept every viral claim as evidence? Or do we demand the rigor of verification? The seriousness of this debate cannot be dismissed. What begins as a conversation about a beach photo may, in truth, be a reflection of something larger: the vulnerability of global fandoms to sensationalism. ARMY, a fandom known for its dedication and unity, now finds itself fractured by interpretations of a single image. Yet the fracture may say more about the ecosystem of information than about BTS themselves. Are we witnessing a rift within the group, or a rift within ourselves as consumers of media? Every fan, every reader, every observer is confronted with the same provocation. Will you allow yourself to be carried by the current of speculation, or will you resist it with skepticism? Will you treat the sunset as evidence of betrayal, or as a mirror of your own expectations? Will you believe in the narrative of jealousy, or will you question whether jealousy has been fabricated by those who profit from your engagement? The responsibility of critical thought cannot be overstated. In an era where media thrives on sensationalism, the line between fact and fabrication is blurred. Every viral story, every trending topic, every dramatic interpretation demands scrutiny. Do we question the sources of these claims? Do we pause to consider whether an image may have been stripped of its context? Or do we surrender, willingly, to the comfort of drama, choosing to believe not what is true, but what feels compelling? To the millions of ARMY across the globe, the challenge is personal. Do you truly believe that Jungkook's absence signifies jealousy and division? Or do you acknowledge the possibility that you have been led into a narrative that benefits media cycles more than it reflects reality? Are you willing to admit that what you feel may be less about BTS and more about the machinery of information that feeds upon your emotions? The beach photograph has already achieved its purpose. It has ignited attention, commanded headlines, and generated endless debate. But the more pressing question remains unanswered. What if it is nothing more than a carefully orchestrated distraction? What if its power lies not in what it reveals about BTS, but in what it reveals about us, the audience, the consumers, the believers who turn silence into confession and coincidence into conspiracy? Reflection is not optional. It is essential. If we do not ask whether the story is authentic, we risk becoming prisoners of sensationalism. If we do not demand evidence, we risk reducing truth to the loudest speculation. And if we do not cultivate skepticism, we risk losing the ability to distinguish between fact and fabrication altogether. Therefore, the provocation remains: is this moment reality, or is it artifice? Is Jungkook truly jealous, or has jealousy been manufactured for us to consume? Is BTS truly divided, or are we witnessing the division of perception within ourselves? Each fan must confront these questions, not with blind faith, but with critical thought. The ocean sunset is no longer merely about Jimin, Taehyung, and Jungkook. It is about us, the observers, the interpreters, the amplifiers of meaning. The power of the photograph lies not in what it captured, but in what it inspired, a mirror of our willingness to believe, our hunger for stories, and our struggle to separate fact from fiction. And until we answer these questions, the debate will not end. Not because the truth is hidden, but because the truth may never have been there at all. The debate over the ocean photograph continues to intensify, but it is no longer simply about Jimin, Taehyung, and Jungkook. It has become a larger question about the nature of information itself. When audiences encounter a story that spreads across TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and other platforms, do they pause to question its authenticity, or do they accept it as fact simply because it is repeated often enough? The danger lies in the repetition. A rumor repeated endlessly begins to wear the mask of truth. Yet repetition is not verification, and virality is not evidence. We must ask ourselves, Are we reacting to reality? Or are we reacting to a performance of reality staged for us by algorithms, headlines, and emotional triggers? Is it possible that Jungkook's supposed jealousy exists only in the interpretations imposed upon silence? Or is it more likely that audiences, conditioned by years of sensational reporting, are trained to expect fractures where none exist? The power of media lies not in what it shows, but in what it suggests. Consider how quickly the narrative shifted. Within hours, discussions about one photograph turned into theories about division, betrayal, and shifting allegiances. Yet what evidence has been presented beyond the absence of a single figure? None. And still, millions are convinced. Should this not trouble us? Should we not reflect on our own willingness to believe in stories that confirm our fears rather than demand the discipline of verification? The provocation is unavoidable. If this entire controversy is built on speculation, then who benefits? Do platforms gain from the clicks, the shares, the outrage? Do tabloids profit from the headlines that thrive on emotional intensity? And if so, are we not complicit in sustaining an economy of sensationalism each time we react without question? To remain critical is not to dismiss emotion, but to challenge it. The photograph may symbolize healing, or it may symbolize division. But before we assign meaning, we must ask, are we seeing BTS, or are we seeing ourselves reflected in the storm we have created? The challenge now is not only to interpret a photograph, but to confront the mechanisms of belief itself. Do we, as an audience, surrender to narratives shaped by repetition, or do we hold firm to skepticism as our only safeguard against manipulation? The ocean moment may fade with time, but the question it leaves behind will remain. Are we witnesses of truth, or participants in a carefully crafted illusion? The more we examine the controversy, the clearer it becomes that this is not simply about a missing Jungkook in one photo, but about the way fandoms and media culture thrive on ambiguity. Silence becomes fuel, absence becomes presence, and speculation becomes the currency of attention. What was once an innocent moment between Taehyung and Jimin has now been elevated into a cultural touchstone, dissected and magnified until it no longer belongs to the people in the photograph. It belongs to us. But here lies the unsettling truth. Perhaps we do not want answers. Perhaps the storm survives because uncertainty keeps us invested. If Jungkook were to post tomorrow clarifying that he had simply been elsewhere, would the storm dissipate? Or would new theories sprout, claiming that his statement was scripted, strategic, or even forced by management? The thirst for narrative is endless. And so long as ambiguity remains, we will continue to drink from it. This moment forces us to confront an uncomfortable mirror. Are fans really supporting BTS, or are they consuming them? When every gesture is mined for meaning and every absence turned into evidence, where is the space for authenticity? BTS have built their legacy on openness, but openness has a cost. The cost of being forever vulnerable to interpretation, no matter how mundane their actions may be. And yet, the photograph's power cannot be denied. It has pierced through language barriers and cultural borders, igniting conversations in Seoul, New York, Paris, Jakarta, Sao Paulo, and beyond. Even those with little knowledge of BTS find themselves drawn into the spectacle because the narrative is universal. Friendship, jealousy, division, reconciliation. These are not just themes of celebrity culture. They are archetypes of human experience, ones we recognize instantly because they mirror our own fears and desires. In that sense, Jungkook's absence becomes more than speculation. It becomes a canvas onto which fans project their anxieties about change, about the future of BTS, about the fragile nature of bonds that once seemed eternal. The ocean photograph feels intimate not because it reveals BTS's truth, but because it reveals our own longing for permanence in a world that constantly shifts. The irony is that BTS themselves may have little interest in these interpretations. For them, it could have been nothing more than a moment of peace, a breath stolen from the chaos of fame. Yet the world refuses to let it remain private. The photo has been seized, dissected, and weaponized, not necessarily by malice, but by the very mechanisms of global attention. This is the paradox of celebrity in the digital age. What is private is never truly private, and what is ambiguous is never left alone. Some observers argue that this controversy marks a dangerous turning point. If ARMY, once renowned for unity and resilience, can fracture over a photograph, what will happen when truly difficult challenges arise? If speculation can override trust so easily, then the foundation of fandom itself must be questioned. Are we united by love for BTS? Or are we united by the narratives we build around them? Yet there is another way to view this storm. Not as a crisis, but as proof of BTS's enduring cultural power. That a single image can command such attention, provoke such analysis, and inspire such emotional intensity speaks volumes about their influence. Few groups in history have ever held this kind of grip over the global imagination. Even controversy is evidence of relevance, and silence itself becomes proof of their significance. Still, the tension remains unresolved. Until Jungkook, Jimin, or Taehyung break their silence, the photograph will continue to haunt the fandom. Each day without clarity feels like confirmation of deeper truths, even when those truths may not exist. The waves of speculation mirror the ocean itself, restless, ceaseless, and impossible to contain. And perhaps that is the point. Perhaps the ocean photo will never be explained, never clarified, never settled. Perhaps it is destined to remain a mystery, a symbol that outlives its context. For ARMY, it may always stand as a reminder of the fine line between devotion and obsession, between truth and perception, between what is real and what we wish to believe. In the end, we return to the question that began this storm. Is Jungkook truly jealous? The answer may never come. But maybe the more urgent question is whether we, as fans and observers, are willing to live without an answer, or whether our hunger for narrative will demand one. Even if it means creating it ourselves, the ocean will keep its secrets. The sunset will fade, but the photograph remains, etched not only in pixels, but in memory, interpretation, and myth. A moment once fleeting has been immortalized, not by Taehyung, not by Jimin, not by Jungkook, but by us. And in that immortality lies both the beauty and the burden of being BTS.